Our subject today is oral comprehension. This is a key factor in helping the mind of the child learn to understand what he's hearing and reading, and that's a pretty important step. So we're going to be talking about ways that we can establish within the child habits of mind in when you read a story to him, you tell a story to him, he understands what he's hearing, and that ability to understand and comprehend will then translate in later years into reading comprehension. So we're going to give you today 8 goals for oral comprehension. And you'll see on the list 9 because that 9th one is kind of a little extra special added bonus. But the main ones are 1 through 8. And I'm just going to read them over so we're kind of familiar with the content of what we're going to talk about today. First is falling in love with books. And of course, for me, that was never a problem. I've always loved stories and loved books. And I think that there's ways that you can help your child fall in love with books as well. Second, learning what comprehension is all about. Third, determining what is important. Fourth, activating prior knowledge. Fifth, learning to ask questions. And you're going to be surprised at all the ways you ask questions. 6, eliciting sensory impressions. 7, making inferences. 8, synthesizing. And then the special bonus is identifying narrative elements. So we're going to go through these one by one, and we'll begin with falling in love with books. And I think one of the best ways to do that is to think back on your own childhood. What were the absolute most favorite stories that you heard or that your parents read to you? And share those books with your children. Read those books. Get them from the library. Buy them for your personal library. But get your child as enthusiastic about those stories as you were. And I also discovered something really interesting. As a mother of 3, you hold your newborn in your arms and you look into their eyes and you realize you don't know who this person is yet. And as they get older, you can discover what they're interested in. And a fun thing to do is to take your child to a local bookstore or the public library and let him choose the books instead of you select the books. So you find out what the child is interested in, and then you pursue that with stories that he likes. And I also find that whenever my child would get interested in a new topic, we'd make a trip to the library and find a book or go on the internet and find some information. But create that hunger for new words, new interests, and feed those new interests as they arise. Another thing that you can do if you're a classroom teacher, and I did this one time and it was loads of fun, I had each child bring their very favorite book to school, and then we took a digital photograph of it, and then we hung the covers on the wall in the classroom. So there's ways to make children interested in what they like and proud of it, and it's a feature of their personality, their love of books. There's a fellow by the name of Jim Trelease who wrote a wonderful book called the Read Aloud Handbook quite a few years back. You probably still get it online. But he makes a wonderful suggestion. You know, the spine of a book is the most uninteresting part of the book. And if you get gutter, just white gutter, at a local hardware store and put that up on your wall at varying levels from the floor, then you can put your child's books out with the cover facing the front, and that's inherently more interesting. I know some schools do that in the hallways, and they do it in the library so that children can actually see the covers of the books, and that's far more interesting. So just do the things that will inspire children with a love of books. So the second goal of oral comprehension is just helping the child understand that there is something to be understood and recalled. And this is really the precursor of something in education we call metacognition, where you learn to think about what you're thinking about. And for a young child, that's a very slow, gradual process. So in this process of establishing these goals, we're going to do a lot of modeling. We're going to show the child how to think about things rather than ask him what to think about it. We're just going to model. So one of the great tools that we have is activating prior knowledge. And pretty much all education uses this concept. You go with what the child knows and you build from there. So there's ways you can do this with books that you read to children, storybooks or short novels, whatever it is you choose. First is text to self. You find some story element that relates to the child's personal experiences, his recollections, his feelings. For example, one of the stories that I tell in our Age of Montessori training program is a wonderful book called Something from Nothing, and it's about a little boy and his grandfather. Well, to start, as I introduce the story, I always tell about my grandpa. So I'm modeling how I find a relationship between the story and my own life, and that makes it more interesting. Then you can go text to text. And what that means is simply if you've got two books that tell similar stories, after you read one book and then you introduce the second one, you remember how that reminds us of that story. So you just let the child, again, you model how your mind goes from one book to another book. And then the third one is text to the world. And that just means there may be things in the news, there may be a magazine article or a newspaper article that you bring in that has something to do with the storybook that you're reading, so the child sees, oh, okay, it's just like that in my book and it's just like that in the world. So it helps link the child to a common body of knowledge.